So in addition to planning out, your different ideas for the study abroad programs you would like to do, and as you are going through and maybe you found an advisor or a consultant or an agent, I definitely just want to sort of highlight this to be aware of scammers. And obviously this is true in any realm of life, but particularly in the study abroad space, it's something where you sort of see it a lot. And I think a lot of times we just ignore it because we feel like, oh, this person is just spamming us. So spam and scam, ironically, they sound alike, but like you'll see all these different ads on, or not really even ads, but like postings, I guess is the proper term, on places like Facebook and Instagram, and maybe they're even now on TikTok, and all these other places where they're talking, people will, they love to use WhatsApp particularly. And again, I want to highlight, if you watched my video from last week, it's in the description box. I talked about how consultants particularly are much more common and much more popular in Europe and in some parts of Canada and in a lot of Asian countries compared to here in the US, where you're going to hear much more about advisors and then some about agents. And then with agents, it's kind of the same. Like they're a little bit split between here in the US and other parts of the world. But since most American students tend to, although unfortunately, I don't particularly like that idea. I want to change that. But even though most students tend to just study with the school they're already in, a lot of schools here in the US already have dedicated advising offices. They have people that are doing that, or they have people like me who, maybe people just know and they work with. So it's a lot different. But for consultants specifically, I just kind of want to talk about that because, again, as I kind of mentioned in the other video as well, when you're offering services and you're trying to say what you're doing, particularly when you're using advisor and consultant, people will sort of try to interchange those because advisor, a lot of times, like it sounds maybe, well, I already need to be in the program. That's how it works. A lot of people are familiar with that. Whereas consultant, it sounds like, oh, maybe you're going to help get me in. And if you followed along in the other video, I talked about some of the differences, but also to how, and I'm not, again, I said, I'm not just saying this because I am a study abroad advisor, where it's like with advisors, no matter whether it's study abroad or whatever it is, advisors typically tend to be the most reliable in terms of being there with you throughout the entire process. Every time that I work with a student and they're ready to move forward and start working regularly, I walk with them the entire time from the point that they fill out the application to the time they get ready to go. And then, of course, I have my business where, they hopefully and usually do enroll to become a part of the study abroad community throughout their semester. And again, as I said, consultants are also really great if they do what they say they're going to do, because they can kind of take the high level approach, sort of like an advisor, but sort of in a quicker way, and just kind of get it together, but they often will charge more. So if they are legit, it is great, particularly if you're someone who you've kind of already got it all planned out, but you just want to make sure you're on the right track. But with consultants in particular, there are a few things to look out for. Now, the reason I'm not mentioning agents in this, because with agents, as I said, they tend to work with a lot of different entities. And so most agents are not just an independent player. There are some agents that are, but it doesn't matter what type of agent it is, whether it's a sales agent, a real estate agent, a baseball agent, a Hollywood agent. If you think about it in those terms, like they have different clients, right? And so that's kind of the point of what they do. And so it's like, we've already talked about the fact that their main thing is making a commission. Yes, they will tell you about different types of programs. They will sell you different types of programs. They will market those to you, but their main mission is to make money. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different style of engaging with people. And so with them, while you definitely still need to make sure that, they are not conning you out of anything, as you would with an advisor as well, it's a little bit different in their approach, because with consultants, particularly since they do charge more, a lot of times compared to advisors and to agents, they will sort of, if they are not legit. So if they are legit, that is great, go ahead and work with them. But a lot of times why it is easier to be a scammer as a consultant is because, number one, the term sounds really fancy. And if you had not watched my other video, you probably don't even know the difference between advisor, consultant, or agent. So definitely watch that video. But it sounds really fancy, like, ooh, like I'm working with a consultant, like, I'm really fancy and I'm going to study abroad, somewhere, and it's going to be great. And so that is sort of the entry point for study abroad people who want to scam you. And so it's like they'll use the term, and then, as I said, they can kind of just look at what other consultants, even if it's not in study abroad, are charging. And so, and then they'll have like a really nice summary of like, work with me or chat with me on WhatsApp, and you'll be able to figure out, like, this is how much I can sort of help you get in scholarship, and this is that, and that's this. And so I think that the best way to sort of approach that is, when you're thinking about scammers, is number one, which I think applies to everybody at this point in time in the life that we live, is, do they have an online presence? That is huge. And the reason why I say that is because actually it's not everyone. Like, you would be surprised, and in some cases it works. I have gone to, for example, let's say to like a chiropractor or something, and they were just like in a hole in the wall somewhere, and you're like, is this really legit? But then, like, they were part of the insurance, and so you're like, okay, it's legit, but like, you really are just in a really, really strange place, and I don't understand how this office exists. And we've all probably been to places like that, right, where you go to like get a haircut or something, and you're like, is this the right place where I should be? Like, this doesn't make sense. And that they don't have a website, they don't have typically a lot of times they're older, they don't have a website, they don't have a Twitter, they don't have anything. And so you just kind of have to go on good faith. I think in some cases we've all been there, where it's a little bit sketch, but it works out. But with consultants, for most people who are in the study abroad industry, no matter what area, you're going to have an online presence. So that's going to be like a huge part of it, and whatever that means for you. Again, people have different levels of judgy when it comes to that. But for me, I want to see a website. My website's down below. I want to see a blog, I want to see a YouTube video. I want to see something so I can actually see this person as a real human being. Now, again, I don't need to know their social security number or, their NHS number or whatever it is. But it's like, I want to see, like, are they a real human being? Because again, I'm not just going to start chatting with you on WhatsApp without knowing what's going on. And then, like, you get me all excited. And the next thing I know, I'm, sending over my credit card details, and I never hear from you again. So I think that is something that a lot of people get caught up in. It's more people than it should be, because again, it sounds so exciting the way that they sell it. And they're like, I, can tell you all about all these programs in, China and India and Europe, and then I'm going to help you, walk you through it. And for a lot of people, they're starting out, as I know this very well, working with so many students, that a lot of times people don't know where to start when they want to study abroad. And so they're like, oh my God, this person knows about it. Like, and they message me personally, like, they definitely can help me, but it's like, online presence, without a doubt, that should be your first stop. Like, and particularly if it's like the website, like, it better not just be like a one pager either. Like, do they have a real website? Like, what is going on? So I just definitely always like to point that out. Even for students who are just meeting me for the first time, it's like, go on the website, check it out. I am a real person. Obviously, I'm right here in front of you on camera here. But it's like, you definitely want to make sure that this is a legit operation before you start talking about contracting and money and all of that stuff. So for my number two sort of tip on this of avoiding scammers with consultants is, you want to know about their, what is their refund policy? So that's another important touch point as well, because just like anything else where you're going to find a scammer, but particularly with education, because it is such it's an interesting place, right? Because you have a lot of students who are they're no longer operating under the advisement of their parents a lot of times. And so it's like, they're going to be tackling things on their own. And so they feel like, oh, well, I can just get it done. I'll just pay for it or whatever. Or maybe they just ask their parents for the money, however that works. But it's like, it's not like you're a little kid where it's like your parents have to approve every single thing for you. Or, it could be something where it's like they get started and then they find that the service is not what they were really looking for. And so, they're looking for a refund, but the scammer is kind of already gone on their way because, again, you never had a chance to sort of figure out or think about what the refund policy was. And so, very similar to the online presence. I mean, again, some people do not list their refund policy. For me, I typically send out all that information, after like the student has decided that they want to start the starter session. I send out that with like a little bit of an intake form, just so they kind of know what it means to kind of get a refund. Particularly not so much for the starter session. Typically, the starter sessions are kind of a one and done. But if you would like to continue on for regular sessions, there is a particular refund policy that I do have that I send students directly once they fill out the form. But, if you're going to someone, again, you should be clear about what that is before you hand over any type of money. So for number 3, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but do they offer intro sessions, starter sessions, as I call mine? Do those consultants that you're seeing online that you've, hopefully clicked on their website, if they have one, remember that's the number one thing. If they don't, keep walking. But do they offer some type of intro session? So again, I'm not here to judge anybody. I know that some people don't feel as comfortable on camera. Some people, maybe they, depending on what country they live in, maybe they don't really use the internet in the same way. Maybe they have to use WhatsApp or whatever. But have you been able to make a connection with this person in a way of substance that's going to be able to stand out to you? So obviously, like, I like to get on here and do this. And then with all my students, it is 2021. So obviously most things are online, but whatever it is, it's like with the starter and intro sessions, you definitely want to be able to connect with this person. So eyeball to eyeball, you want to be able to sort of talk through, like, this is what I'm looking for in terms of, this is the program I'm looking for. This is what I'm interested in doing while I'm studying abroad. You really, during my sessions that I work with students in, when that first starter session, it really is just a deeper dive into what they're interested in doing. And, I'll ask them more about like, like, how does this fit into your overall career goals? How do you see yourself really kind of using it once you return home? What are some of the hesitations you have? All those kind of good things that, people kind of have in their heads, but they just want to talk with someone about. That's typically what it is. So again, if you are coming across a consultant and, maybe just, if you, to find out whether they are legit or not, if you were interested in working with a consultant specifically, ask them, do you have an intro session or starter sessions? Like that's typically what they're called, mostly called intro sessions. Like, do you have something where we could just meet, for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever? Sometimes you will be charged, sometimes you won't. I do charge for mine, but it's a much lower fee than if you were just working with me regularly, weekly or monthly. But still, you still get the time for the money. So I give you the full time, the full 30 minutes for the amount of money that you pay. But it's just about being able to make that instant connection, because the other thing that is important about that I think is important for the student and for the person like me who's advising, and then for these consultants, if they are legit, is you want to make sure that it's a good fit. I think that a lot of times people gloss over that, because again, like, a lot of students who do study abroad, they are really interested in doing, they're really eager, really excited. They feel like, I don't want to miss this opportunity. And so they're just willing to kind of sign up for anything. And I always like to sort of pull students back from that and say, like, do you think it's a good fit? So I will actually ask that at the end of the conversation while we're on the phone, or on the, whatever we're doing, Zoom, Skype, whatever, and say, like, so, like, we've been talking for the past 25 minutes, like, how are you feeling about this fit? Asking the question of a student is like, so what did you think of our time? Do you think we're a good fit? You're putting someone on the spot. It can be awkward. A lot of students, as they're going along, you can already tell they're really kind of into it and they want to work with you. But other students, you just give them time. Maybe they come back to you, maybe they think about it and they're like, yeah, actually, like, I learned a lot, like, I want to move forward. But whatever it is, I mean, I promise you, I do not take it personally. I understand. But I think that that's going to be important. Like, those starter sessions are so important to be able to just get to see someone, get to actually connect with them, see, like, does their personality fit your personality? Because again, as I said, with advisors, particularly like what I do, you're going to be working with this person probably for maybe up to 7 to 8 weeks, because typically like you would meet with your advisor every single week. Now, so it depends. There's some, I meet with some kids multiple times a week if they're applying for different programs, particularly like at the graduate level, and they really need that help because they're applying to graduate schools abroad. And that is definitely something that is at the top of my wheelhouse. I've done it multiple times, and so that needs a different level of interaction. But even if it's just kind of a basic study abroad, you're going to be working with this person for a little bit of time, and so you want to make sure that it's a good fit. And then also too, it sort of helps to save you some pain if this person is not willing to even if it's just for like 5 minutes, just get on the phone with you, and just kind of talk to you and sort of explain, like, what their program is, what they're able to offer you. If you can't get a person to do that, you definitely should consider that to be on the level of a scammer. And you will find that a lot in advertisements for study abroad consultants.